Hello everybody, my name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. This first entitled parent story is sure to get your blood boiling, so let's get right into it. Written by imsadiwanthelp, entitled Mom demands I use a non-accessible seat on the bus. Some quick background. I had a tumor on my spine a few years ago. Luckily, it was removed and I'm pretty healthy overall now, but not so luckily I can't walk anymore. Into meeting the entitled mom. Last week, I had a doctor's appointment as a follow-up to some issues I'd been having. Normally, my parents would take me to the doctor, but they were pretty busy, so I figured I'd take the bus. Luckily, my city overall has a very accessible bus system. They also have specific buses meant to assist people with disabilities, but my route from the house to the doctor's office aligned pretty much perfectly with one of the normal bus routes, so I figured I'd just use it. All the normal buses are equipped with wheelchair ramps and a place to secure it. When there isn't a wheelchair user on the bus, there are seats over the area that's used to secure a wheelchair. I can't be anywhere else as it's a safety hazard to have a large metal chair wheeling around haphazardly. So the driver lowers the ramp and I board the bus. Due to COVID, the bus was pretty empty. During this whole thing, I was wearing a mask and I also got tested last week, so don't worry about my contact with the driver. There were a few people in the back and a woman with her child, who's probably about 6, seated at the front over the wheelchair securement area, which is fine. The area has a notice saying people with disabilities have priority seating, but the general public can use it if nobody else needs to. Normally, it would be a simple, "Hey, could you please move? I need to secure my wheelchair," but not this time. The conversation isn't exact because my memory isn't perfect, but here's my best recreation of the encounter. I stayed quiet for most of it. Luckily, the bus driver was absolutely amazing and stood up for me. Bus driver says, "Hey, could you move?" to entitled mother and daughter. "No, my daughter and I are sitting here." "You need to move to another seat so I can secure the passengers," me, wheelchair. "They can sit somewhere else." "No, that's the only area with proper securement." "They can just take the next bus." "No, they have a right to use the bus, you need to move." "No, my daughter and I are staying, you can't make me." "Yes, I can. You can either move seats now or you can leave." I say if it's really a bother, I can take the next bus. I'm very non-confrontational. I would have been late to the doctor's appointment, but I don't like bothering people. Bus driver says to me, "No, you can take this one." "See, the cripple even says she doesn't need it." Bus driver to entitled mother, "You can either move seats or wait here until the police arrive." "You can't make my daughter and I move. This is harassment." At this point, the bus driver began to call someone. I'm unsure if it was actual police or what, but the entitled mother ended up moving 2 seats over. Thankfully, and I got secured in the seat. She spent the rest of the time glaring at me, but honestly, I don't mind. There are some complete a-holes like the entitled mother, but there are also great people like the bus driver. When I was getting off, he apologized for entitled mother's actions, even though obviously they weren't his fault. In the end, I got to the doctor's appointment on time, so all was well. I just hope the woman's daughter learns not to be an a-hole somehow. What a wonderful saint that bus driver was. I would hope most bus drivers would stand up for them considering it's their job and it's a legal right to be able to sit in that seat. But how despicable of a person can you be to deny somebody with a wheelchair the seat on the bus? And then the words she used too. She obviously did not give a crap about OP. She's just a terrible person. Like I said, this story is blood boiling. I'm sure if any of us saw this going on, we'd want to advocate for them and try and stand up for OP too, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Our next story is by Ondranour. A kid without helmet comes, breaks his board, and his mom wants us to pay for it. Gets exposed by a camera. Backstory. So it was a sunny day. Birds were singing, flowers were blooming. On days like this, dumb butts like me are walking to the store to buy a loaf of bread but are meeting entitled mothers instead. So mom gave me some cash. I took a small backpack and put a hoodie in it. News said it could rain later, so I wanted at least something and got kicked out to the streets. And because it was such a nice day, I decided to walk around a bit before buying it. Oh god, it was a mistake. I called my girl friend, only friend, if she wants to go out with me. I hope it doesn't have a two-way meaning. Surprisingly, she said yes. So we were walking around in the parks having chit-chat about what we were going to do at the holidays. I was telling jokes, the usual. We went to buy some sodas before going back. Once we've got it, we turned back. Let's meet the cast. Me, Doki Doki Literature Club fanboy. GF, that girl friend. EM, entitled mother. G, random guy. C, cop, sans of our story. EK, sadly a little brat, 10 years old. On to the story. Walking away from the stand, I say, "Don't worry, that'll put you up on your feet." Friend laughs because of a bad joke. "Don't worry, I've got tons more." Friend says, "Oh, I am sure you do." Summon entitled parent family. Or this one's also good. "Dad, why do women wear white for when it gets interrupted by entitled kid?" Now, we were walking around the restroom, so we didn't see him. So what happened is that entitled kid hit friend and knocked her down and spilled all her Pepsi onto her shirt. Well, the t-shirt was screwed and she couldn't wear it. But thankfully she was okay. But that was the least of our problem. "Hey, watch where you're going, darn it!" And then to friend, "Are you okay? Here." I lend her a hand. Friend says, yeah, I am okay. Thanks me. She takes my hand and jumps up. "Well, you are okay if you say so. I am glad to hear that, but the t-shirt's freaked. Look." Friend checks her t-shirt. "Oh man, and it was my favorite one too." Meanwhile, entitled mother runs up to us. "Entitled kid, sweetie, are you okay, honey? You two, watch where you are going. Tell that to your son and buy him a darn helmet before he hurts himself or others." Yes, he was missing a helmet. Wonderful parent, isn't she? "He doesn't need a helmet, he's very skilled and good." Yeah, he needs one anyways, he's not even 18. And even the best ones should have it. Accidents happen all the time. Entitled kid starts crying, Mom. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Now I notice that entitled kid's board was broken in two halves and one wheel was missing. Either way, it was a goner. "Look what you have done. You will pay for it, both of you." I am not paying for anything. I didn't break it. Entitled kid fell on it or something. "Oh yes, you are, or I am gonna call the cops." Me does a smug smile. "Sure, I will call them if you want." "Oh, okay then, I will call them now." She then proceeds to go a few steps away to call the cops. I use the time to give my girl friend my spare hoodie so she can change. She says, "Thank you, OP." I say, "Don't mention it, but I want it back." I give her a wink, she smiles and leaves. "The cops will be here any minute and then you will have to pay me." Sure, whatever. Meanwhile, entitled kid stops sulking. Friend has changed and entitled mother was giving me a death stare. Why didn't I, an idiot, just go and buy the bread? After a few minutes, cop came. Probably an officer without a car. "Good day, who called 158? Number for cops here in my country. "Me, I did." "So what happened, ma'am?" She then proceeds to talk some fake things about how we ran into entitled kid and then proceeded to destroy his board. "Did this really happen, kid?" Kid says yes, they broke it, sobs. "Alright, so what happened according to you?" "We were walking home when entitled kid hit us when he came around the toilets. It was a stupid accident, you can check the camera if you want." I point at it. "I am gonna do that." Walks away. Entitled mother goes red and entitled kid too. I know that park too well and there's a camera because those restrooms are vandalized often. So they've put it there. It's pointless because people are vandalizing the other side, but they kept it there. After a while, cop comes back. "So we just checked the cam systems and it shows how entitled kid hits accidentally OP and friend. And it also shows how he doesn't have a helmet. You know there's a fine for it." Right, you two can go away and your ID please." So we then take our things and are on our way. I look at entitled mother, give her a wink and a wave. She gives me the finger. Nice. So overall, not so interesting story. It was nothing compared to others over my last one. I promoted it again, darn it. And for those who wonder how it ended, 1. Yes, I bought the bread. 2. No, I don't have my hoodie back yet. You know, I doubt you're gonna get that hoodie back, I'll be quite honest with you. It's just the girl hoodie thievery. If you give it up, don't expect it back. And I also agree, if you're skateboarding, especially at a young age, you should always be wearing a helmet. It might not be the most fashionable thing, but honestly, who cares what others think? I used to be so worried about what other people think, but honestly, it's so enriching to just not give a single care. When you focus on you and you focus on your safety, it'll mean a lot when you do have a wipeout and you realize you could have really hurt yourself without it. Also, quick at the end here, if anybody wanted to hear the joke that OP was saying that entitled mother cut them off, it was, "Dad, why do women wear white for their wedding?" "Because it's their happiest day, son." Oh, now I get why we wear black. But Tish, on to the next story. Our next story is by letsnotmeetbb. Entitled parents think I need to give up everything so their daughters don't feel bad. Hey, so I have tons of stories from this family and still live in the neighborhood and honestly try to avoid her every second I can. I'm 21 now, female, and her daughters are 23 and 21. 5 months younger than myself, respectively. We will call entitled mother Karen, daughter 23 Taylor, and 21 Caitlin. Change names. So they moved into the neighborhood when I was 3. Taylor 4 or 5 and Caitlin 3. And at first I was friends with entitled daughters. They irritated me though. But you know, that's life, and when there's kids to play with around your age in your neighborhood, you take it. Flash forward and we are all in elementary school and have the same bus stop. There are about 8 to 10 kids at the stop, and it was always a race to be first in line. Now, entitled family is kind of a mess, and the daughters would always be sprinting up the street while the rest of us try to get the bus driver to wait for them. Late, as always. Didn't bother me though. So one day, entitled family gets to the bus stop a few minutes before the bus, and the rest of us kids are already there in line. I happen to be first that day and am talking to another one of my friends at the stop who is second. Caitlin walks up to us and says, "Hi, can I cut you? I'm gonna be first today." "No, I'm first today. Maybe get here first tomorrow and you can be first tomorrow," I tell her. Caitlin starts crying and runs to her mother. I continue my conversation because this girl always cries and I just couldn't be bothered to care. Then Karen walks up. "Excuse me, but Caitlin deserves to be first today. Let her go in front of you." "No, I am first." "Well, Caitlin deserves it. She never gets to be first, and so you should let her. It's only fair." "No, she needs to get here first to be first. I told her maybe tomorrow she can be." Karen walks away with Caitlin, and I hear her telling her some Bible verse about the last shall be first and how I'm going to hell for not sharing. That's just one incident. Here's another. This one featuring entitled dad, who we will call Dan. I am playing with the same neighborhood friend from the line. Let's call her Sam. I'd say I'm 7 and she's 9 here. So Sam and I are playing a game in her driveway when Taylor comes down the street to see what we are doing. We tell her. I remember we had made up some play where we were wizards or something, not too sure. Anyways, she tells us that's dumb and that she doesn't want to play that, so we say okay, then don't play with us and continue playing. She goes home. 5 minutes later, Dan comes down the street and walks up to Sam's driveway. He calls us over, and being kids responding to adults, we head over to see what's up. "I hear you're excluding my daughter, ladies. You know that is unacceptable." "Actually, we told her she could play, but she said she didn't want to play our game," Sam tries to explain. "Well, then change your game so she can play." He yells at us. "I will not have selfish kids making my daughter cry. And I will tell your mother you are excluding her if you don't play something Taylor wants." Long story short, because we were terrified of this ex-army monstrosity of a dad, we changed our game reluctantly. Things like this happen so often, it's hard to count. He terrified us. Guess I'll do one more, although I have dozens in my mind. This time I'm about 13. I have always been a good student and made straight A's. I also suffer from extreme anxiety, and during this time I was super skinny because I physically couldn't get myself to eat due to this anxiety. Taylor and Caitlin have always been bigger girls. No big deal. They also were C and B students. Again, who cares? Well, entitled parents did. I was over at their house one day just watching a movie and they invited me to eat dinner with them. We all sat down at the table and began to eat. Entitled parents Karen and Dan look at each other and Dan asks me, "How are your grades doing? You're doing well in math, I hear." Not wanting to be rude, I tell him, "Yes, I'm doing well, but say no more." He then asks, "Well, what are your grades?" I tell him all A's and he looks at Karen. "I think you should let our girls have your homework or do their homework for them. After all, you were supposed to be in Caitlin's grade, so you should probably do her work." I had skipped a grade, so I was in the level directly between the two daughters. Entitled parents continued to pester me about cheating their girls to better grades, and I told them I didn't feel comfortable with that. Entitled kids start saying that I had to help them because we were neighbors and I owed them. This whole family seems to think where you live dictates who you help, which I don't agree with. Either way, I refused and they finally let it go. I then reached for another taco as they were good and I was hungry. Karen looks at me and says, "How do you stay so skinny and eat like that?" I immediately drew my hand back in shame. She continues, "My daughters deserve to look like you. I make them eat less and they are still fat. You're making them feel uncomfortable by eating so much." I didn't eat again the rest of the night. I went home and told my mom what happened. When she went to talk to entitled parents about it the next day, they told her I was lying. She knew they were lying as the whole family was full of shoot, but decided to avoid the drama and just walked away. In short, this family decided that because I was their neighbor and objectively better than their daughters, I had to do everything I could to make them be like me. Taylor ended up in later years going psycho and bullying me to the point I still have PTSD, and Caitlin is a pathological liar. Turned out to be real peaches. Honestly, this whole overarching story of this family is so disappointing to hear, and I think the majority of the problems lie on the parents' fault. It sounds like this whole time the parents were idolizing other people and being like, well, my kids need to be more like this. My kids need to do this. My kids need to achieve this thing that this other person is achieving. Instead of just focusing on building their own kids up, raising their kids the way they should have. In my opinion, that's how I'm seeing it. And at least in my opinion, it sounded like it manifested itself later on in the kids' lives where they went psycho. They're a pathological liar. I think having to deal with parents like that and witnessing these parents saying these things about them, saying they're fat, saying that they need better grades, saying that they're basically just not good enough, is probably the main contributor as to why they grew up with issues. It's just sad to see. And our final story of the day is by fredzred. My entitled mother sits in the smoking area and gets offended that people are smoking. I have the pleasure of having a Karen as a mother. I'm older now and I'm no longer in contact with her. This happened when I was a teenager, about 15 years old, 2005. We went for lunch at a cafe we went to all the time. We ordered our drinks and food and went outside to wait. At this cafe, there were two outside areas, a smoking area and a non-smoking area. Karen decided to sit in the smoking area. She is very against smoking, and I warned her that this was the smoking area, but she was having none of it. A few minutes later, a small group came into the area and began smoking. Of course, Karen had a problem with that. Karen, talking loudly to me so the group would hear her, "Oh my gosh, what's with this smoking? This is a family establishment. I can't believe these people." I say, "Let's go to the non-smoking area then." "No, I'm not moving. I was here first. They should move." The group either didn't hear her or were ignoring her because they gave no reaction. Karen directed at the group, "Excuse me? Would you mind not puffing your smoke directly at me? This is very disrespectful." She was acting like they were facing her and purposefully blowing smoke in her face. They weren't. Group member says, "Ma'am, this is the smoking area. We're allowed to smoke here." "No, you are not. I will have you thrown out of here for disrespecting me." She got up and went inside. I apologized to the group while she was gone. A few minutes later, she came back with the manager in tow. "These inconsiderate people have been blowing smoke in my face and swearing at me. I want them removed right now." Manager says, "Ma'am, this is the smoking area. They're allowed to smoke here." As for the offensive language, I cut in. They weren't swearing or doing anything wrong. Mom, stop it. Manager says, if that's the case, ma'am, I can seat you somewhere else. No, we aren't moving. Make them move. I'd had enough of this, so I went inside to get away from this. My mom did this all the time and I was sick of it. Mom stormed inside a few minutes later and said, OP, we're leaving. This is disgusting customer service and we are never coming back. These threats were very common for my mom and she never stuck to the threat. At the misfortune of the staff at these places. We lived in a small town with 2 cafes, the other one being way too expensive for my choosing bigger mother to ever go to. I am no longer in contact with my mom. She lives in another country and doesn't know my address. I'm just grateful that I no longer have to put up with her entitlement. Thanks for reading. Oh man, I wouldn't know how to put up with that secondhand stress and embarrassment that you would have to deal with on an almost daily basis having to live with this Karen as a mother. With nothing you're saying or doing ever being able to get her to slow down or stop, I would get pretty used to walking away too. Like, I'm just not gonna deal with this after a while. How many times would you have to put up with it, you know? Just walk away, forget it. That being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you have a favorite of one of these stories I've read for you today, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. Besides that, if you please could, consider giving this video a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on. Both of those things are crazy helpful for me right here on the Storytime channel, and continues to help the channel grow each and every day. So no matter what you did, whether it was just watching the video, giving it a like, subscribing for the first time, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.